Today is all about the U.S. election between Harris and Trump, or between Trump and Harris. Voting have already started, but today seems to be the D-Day for people like come out en masse to go vote. Don't forget, we have two kinds of voting pattern in America. First, the popular voting pattern, and of course, the electoral college voting pattern. Remember, this happened between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And right now, it's between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Don't forget the outcome of the election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And right now, we have another female, okay, Kamala Harris, who is the vice president, competing toe to toe, shoulder to shoulder against Donald Trump. You know, the American society is a dynamic society that they look out for the points you have to make. They look out for your policies. They look out for so many things that will be of interest of America before they come out to vote. Don't forget that this election has been classified as one of the most divisive elections in recent times because everyone is standing for a particular candidate, giving reasons why they are standing behind these candidates. What do you think will be the outcome of this election? The process is so far, the voting, I want to put it now, the electionary campaign so far, how is it going to affect the outcome of this election? With me here in the studio, I have a political analyst, political affairs commentator, and of course, a core environmentalist. Join me to welcome Cyril Okungbowa, and he's a lover of Donald Trump. Welcome, Cyril. Appreciate your comment.
Thank you, Wilson. It's good to be here again.
All right. Now, all the way to the U.S., I have two amiable gentlemen. A political analyst, political affairs commentator. I'd like to introduce, first of all the way from New Jersey, Honorable Ehi Igareva. Honorable, good afternoon. It's good to have you join us on the show.
And good afternoon, viewers.
All right. And from Massachusetts, we have Barrister Osazuwa Osahon. Barrister, it's good to have you join us this afternoon on International Forum.
It is always my pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so let's say it has started already. It has begun. I want to start off with you, Cyril, because it was 8 years ago or thereabout, this same thing happened where you were like, this is the reason why you're supporting this candidate. That was Donald Trump. You gave good reasons why, and you predicted that Trump was going to come out tops in that election. Against all odds, the man won. But we saw the way it ended with Donald Trump. So from what you're seeing thus far, what can you really make out of the electioneering? In fact, the process that is leading or building up to the D-Day for the election in the U.S.
Thank you, Wilson, and it's great to be here, viewers. The truth is that this election is already shaping up to be a repeat of the 2016 election, the context between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, a situation whereby there's always this general media bias. So before we get any further, I'd just like to state for the records that I think that this election is poised to be a total repeat. Preempting the outcomes, though, I think that Kamala Harris of the DNC would likely take the popular vote. As far as the Electoral College is concerned, Donald Trump will take the day. That's the summation.
That's the summation. Yeah. All right, fine. I will come back to you. Let me get straight down to New Jersey, where Honorable Igareva is standing by. You heard what Cyril talked about. He said it's going to be a repeat of what transpired in 2016. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I beg to differ. I will be calling this one for Kamala Harris for obvious reasons. Since 2015, there's been a change in the demography. And of course, Hillary Clinton had come into the space at that time, into the contest with a lot of baggage. And she was seen as a typical politician. Unlike Kamala Harris don't come with no baggage at all. There are really no negative things for Trump to campaign against her with. And she's been able to hold her own. People had initially were skeptical about her capacity, to hold her own, and saying that, oh, she hasn't done much as vice president. Of course, constitutionally, vice presidents don't do much. But since she, came on top of the ticket, when President Biden had left the race, she's been able to hold her own. She's been able to marshal out points and reasons why Americans should vote for her. And for the very first time, she's been able to, energize certain bases that were either too very comatose, such as the female population, the women. They are largely rooting for her. First-time voters, she's way ahead in the first-time voters. That includes even, for instance, my two daughters. Though they already voted, and so I see her coming tops. As an introductory remark.
All right, you see her coming tops. Fine. Now, let me get to hear from Barrister Osahosa as well, all the way from Massachusetts. Let's see if he shared his opinion with Honorable Yegari while you're towing the line of Cyril Okungbowa. Now, what do you have to say about this as your opening remark?
Yes, Winston, you know where my sympathy lies, and where I ordinarily would love this pendulum to swing. But saying that is to say this, that to see the future is not given to us to know. That's why we know that the future will bring certain changes. We, however, do not know the certain changes that the future will bring. But I am optimistic and I am hopeful that what.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Because from all indications, Kamala Harris is going to get the popular vote. As for the much touted battleground state of Pennsylvania, it can swing anywhere. And I'm hoping and I am praying that Trump would have made enough enemies, would have eliminated enough people to the extent that Kamala can get Pennsylvania. The road to the White House passes through Pennsylvania as we speak now. And anybody that takes Pennsylvania gets to the White House. It is my desire, it is my wishes that that person will be our first Madam President.
All right. Now, three of you have given your opening remarks. Well, Cyril, like what you said, it might just be a repeat of what transpired in 2016, where the Democrats got the popular vote, but for the Electoral College, the vote went to the opposite direction. Now, what gave rise to your own opinion of view, knowing fully well that this time around the election seems to be neck and neck between these two great candidates?
Thank you, Wilson. Once again, it's important to note that while the polls are pointing to a very tightly contested race, I also would want to differ on a few grounds because some of those polls are phony. For example, I'm stating this from the backdrop of the failure of the polls in 2016, because the polls also had Hillary Clinton up by, in fact, such high numbers, and it was thought that the election was going to be a no contest. But in the end, those pollsters failed Americans and failed the world. And they're on the path again. For example, you saw the latest polls that came out of Iowa that suddenly gave Kamala Harris's campaign some energy. That poll is not a real poll. First of all, the sample size was negligible. The demography she covered, it wasn't a widespread poll. It was just an opinion poll that was spiked to give Kamala Harris and the Democrats that perceived edge. It was funny. Meanwhile, there was another contrary poll in the same Iowa that was more credible, had a larger variable sample size, had Trump up by as much as 10 percentage points in terms of margins. Now, it's clear again, right? We know that so far, so good. Kamala Harris really, apart from the traditional base, she's not been able to do much. That's why I want to differ from the first respondent who was the Honorable. Yes, because first of all, if you look at there's been an expansion of the old voters register. We have record new Republican registrations I think it's up by about 7 percentage points. And for Democrats, or the DNC, is down by the same margin, right? As far as early voting goes, the Republican Party is having record numbers. And that is scaring the heck out of these Democrats, because they know traditionally the Republicans will come out on election day. As for early voting, in person or mail-in ballots, those are the areas that Democrats usually sweep. And now they're having issues. Kamala is failing to rally, some minority groups that were supposedly in the bag for the DNC. If you go back as far back as 2016, and even in 2020 against the president and incumbent President Joe Biden. Although Biden is not on this ballot, but this election is a referendum about the Biden administration, of which Kamala Harris forms a huge and integral part of. For example, if you look at her campaign so far, she doesn't have any policy message. She wants to turn the page. Who's she turning the page from? She's the one on the page. So where is she turning from? She doesn't have any clear message apart from a message of calumny and division and referring to Trump as a fascist and referring to his supporters. And, in fact, this election has been a lot about policy for Trump. Like Osama had rightly pointed, he hopes that Trump would gaffe and, then the DNC can seize in the opportunity to make their case. Incidentally and unfortunately, that is the campaign strategy of Kamala Harris. She has nothing to say. On the southern border, you have criminals pouring into America in record numbers. The sanctuary cities are depleting funds that are meant for citizens to cater to immigrants, most of which are criminals. They are on record in the US killing American citizens. There is a new Venezuelan gang that infiltrated the caravan and been able to bring their people in mass numbers to the US, such that they are taking over apartment buildings in Aurora and other places in the US. It's called Tren de Aragua. And they are viciously killing Americans. A friend of mine in New York, for example, told me that, I said, normal person, accommodation is expensive abroad. You want to try to get a decent place, right? But they have immigrants lodged in almost a 4-star hotel. The state of New York, as a sanctuary city, this year, 2024, has spent over $5 billion on undocumented immigrants. And of course, Kamala Harris is promising a path to citizenship for people who came into the country illegally. Meanwhile, there is the issue of economy. This month, the job numbers were a colossal disaster. Where they were expecting about 130-something new jobs, only 12,000 new jobs were added to the economy this month, according to the latest job reports, just days to the election. And guess what? Of that number, I think about 6,000 plus or so, about 46% of that number were government jobs. So it means that the private sector, if you were to leave it to the private sector alone, the American economy would have generated jobs only in the negative numbers this month. That's a disaster. Right. Let's go to security. Let's go to inflation. The energy policy is hurting Americans. The price of groceries that you get for $2 in the past, now you get for as much as $7. Imagine that kind of colossal increase. What about jobs? They are going to have problems in the Rust Belt. They know that's Trump's stronghold. They know. The polls are saying that when she's up in Michigan or whether they are neck to neck, those polls are phony polls. We saw it in the last term, where in 2016, where in fact they were not doing averages and doing polls to bias the people. All right, it's not happening. They know black men are not with them. Even the Latino men are not with them. They know they're in trouble.
I will come back to you. Now let's move straight down to New Jersey, where Honorable Eyegare is standing by. You heard all that Cyril Kumbo posited, saying that the polls are not looking so good for Kamala Harris because of the reasons he gave. Insecurity, Venezuelans encroaching into New York, and of course talking about employment, inflation, that all these may just be factors that may speak against Kamala Harris. He also wanted to say that for popular vote, yes, maybe, just maybe she may win, but for the Electoral College, the story might just be different. Over to you, Honorable.
Well, thank you very much. It's a little bit amusing because if he's saying that Kamala Harris is going to win by popular votes, which means that she's more popular than Donald Trump, but he's only counting on electoral college. And for some of the facts that he reeled out, for instance, the presidential election is not going to be judged by the number of jobs created in just 1 month, which was last month. If you are okay, fine, correctly, you have said that about 12,000 jobs were created in the month of September or in the month of October, but you should have also known that 254,000 jobs were created in just the month before in September. Then another interesting part is my brother is almost sounding like Donald Trump, in his popular slogan of they are eating the cats and eating the dogs, to say that, oh, gangs are killing Americans. There is no record of that. And of course, to say that America is an immigrant country. That is a known fact. Even Donald Trump is married to an immigrant, for instance, and Donald Trump himself is only a second generation immigrant. His grandfather came from Germany. So we are all immigrants in this country. America, that is what makes America America, is an immigrant nation, and so America is very welcoming to people, and they are able to, again, go and look at the numbers at the border. It's on record that when the Donald Trump was in, the number of illegal immigrants coming to the country was higher than what it is today. And for your information, the polls coming out of Iowa are very credible. And I do know that Kamala Harris is going to carry not just Iowa, she's very close, neck and neck with Trump in Georgia. And we are thinking that Pennsylvania should go our way too, because we have a governor right now in Pennsylvania, and the last elections, most of the Democrats won. Then we are talking about a base. Don't forget, for the first time in the US election, you are having a number of former senior Republicans endorsing Kamala Harris. Some of them have not come out, like Dick Cheney, the former vice president, the daughter. Liz Cheney, she's campaigning along. These are lifetime Republican Party members. They are campaigning for Kamala Harris. She's even said that why women should vote, because don't forget, the critical issue for women here is the Roe versus Wade, that was overturned by the Supreme Court. And that Supreme Court are three judges that were either nominated to the Supreme Court by Donald Trump. And Donald Trump came out to say he was in support of that. And women across the country, in large numbers, they believe that this is a violation of their fundamental human rights, that the government should have a final say, in what concerns their own body, what they do with their bodies. They feel like they are being violated. And for that reason, a lot of women are fired up to go and vote so that they can see how this can be changed. That is concerning women. Then a lot of young girls are voting because Kamala Harris gives them the hope and believe that one day they too can become presidents of the United States. They want to break that glass ceiling. So a lot of women, for that reason, are voting for her. Then you come to the immigrant community. Okay, just a couple of days ago, you knew what happened at the rally in New York where Donald Trump was running off his campaigns, and a comedian had come to refer to Puerto Ricans as, or Puerto Rico as a filled with garbage. And this has caused a lot of anger amongst the Latino voters. And some who had hitherto endorsed Donald Trump immediately withdrew their support and endorsement. And they are all now routing for Kamala Harris because they feel insulted. They feel like, what happened? If you are saying this to one Latino community, which means this is how you feel about Latinos. So these are all turning points in the elections. And I'm very hopeful, like I said before, that Kamala Harris is going to carry the day tonight.
All right. You're very hopeful because of the point you've raised that Kamala Harris is going to carry the day. Let me move straight down to Osazua. You've heard both conversation from these two personalities. Still, talking about the disparities between Trump and, of course, Harris, campaign strategies, and what the American society is feeling about these two candidates. You used the word in your opening remark, hope, that somehow Kamala Harris will come out top. That means you're having some doubt. Can you please expatiate on that, being hopeful that she will win? Are you having doubts?
Thank you very much, Winston. Human nature continues to baffle me. That people can see light and day, and then night and darkness, and hope for the latter continues to baffle me. That when the choice is as clear as daylight, for some very strange reasons, you still see certain people who continue to have hate and division in their hearts, who continue to play the ethnic and religious card, who continue to divide and then to try and rule the rest of us. It is pathetic, my brother. That is why I hope. Because we have a large number of people, especially in the South, who for some strange reasons are still infatuated with a no and a serial liar. Someone who opens his mouth every time, and anytime he does that, he spews falsehood, he spews hate, he spews division, and he spews anger. We have a man who is running on steroid of hate, and then people are still magneted to him by some strange infatuation. That is why I hope. Let me tell you something, Wilson. We live in a nation that is divided straight through the center. That no matter what you say, no matter what the evidences are, that Donald Trump is not fit and proper to be president solely on his antecedent, solely on the things, not that things that he says, but the things which he also does. But people will tell you, is this, is that. We know we are not voting for a righteous man. Even when he's playing the religious cards, when he's playing the cards of Americans should be white and Christian, and you tell me you are not voting for a pastor, you're not voting that he has his spot. We all have our spot. That is why we need to turn the page. That is why I say I hope. Like Kamala Harris said in one of our recent campaigns, when she was literally quoting Dr. King, that the arc of the moral universe indeed is long, but that ultimately it bends towards justice. I feel and I strongly believe that we are going to put an end to this American nightmare. It's been 10 years almost 10 years since Donald Trump descended from his golden escalator and plunged the rest of us into anger, into some demonizing fellow Americans, demonizing people and painting them black. When my friend Siri was talking, I could see that it was evident. He liked to spend a sizable number of time at right-wing extremist sites. We understand that yes, the polls says they are running neck to neck, but there is something that most persons are missing. It is the fact that in 2016, the polls were terribly wrong. In 2020, the polls were still terribly wrong. And the last meeting, 2022, the polls were still wrong. So what happened? And poor people that into it's a business. So people are about to stop taking these people seriously. So what are they doing now? They are doing a lot of adjustments. They are telling themselves that there are perhaps millions and millions of Trump voters that for some strange reasons they are always missing to capture in the polls. And what do? They're not making adjustments for those perceived voters. But again, they might just be wrong. The so-called millions and millions of Trump voters who are shy, who are post-shy, they want to say they want to vote for poll, might just be a myth after all. So that's why we have this poll now to save neck. They are saying they are to save face. They're not saying they are running neck to neck. It is statistically and mathematically impossible. That cannot be true. Somebody is going to win with a landslide. Either Trump wins with a landslide or Kamala wins with a landslide. That's what this election is going to tell us. But we know for certain that Kamala Harris is going to get the popular vote. So if someone is going to win by a landslide, it should be by inference that it should be Kamala Harris. Again, my friend Siri was talking about the polls in Iowa, that he was trying to disparage the polls like Trump has been doing the past 3 days, because that thing hits him like a rocket and he didn't see it coming. The Des Moines Register poll is the largest and the most respectful, the most accurate polls in the whole of Iowa. It has been so for almost 30, 40 years now. It comes out once in a month, and they know, and Trump knows that poll is credible. Accurately, 2016, the poll gave it to Trump, and it was Trump. 2020, the same thing. In the last midterm, the same thing. So, women are hungry. Young people, they are hungry. Is there any law, my brother, anywhere in the world that makes laws where politicians make laws to regulate the bodies of men? No, there's no place. And it is preposterous, it beats common sense that here in the US, some lawmakers will sit in Washington and tell the woman there in Virginia, the one here in Boston, how to live their body, what to do with their body. Women are hungry.
I will come back to you. Calm down, just calm down. I will come back to you. Well, you've heard Honorable A.A. Garibay, and of course, Barrister Osahon Osazua still maintaining their stand, giving reasons why Kamala Harris will come out of. You should come out top, because, reason, thinking about things that are going on in the U.S., but think about it, Cyril. How come Republicans always rely on the Electoral College? One of the popular votes.
That is because the scales in America is skewed in such a way that the states with the highest populations get to have a louder voice in the outcome of the general election. And there's no doubt that the DNC don't like the Electoral College system, and Kamala Harris and her cronies might even be looking at something to do with changing that and even expanding the Supreme Court justice system to include more justices, more liberal justices, of course. But then, let me quickly go straight to the point. This campaign has largely been one of calumny. For this, you cannot exonerate the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, they are the aggressors here. Naturally speaking, by the end of January 6, 2020, a Trump presidency was almost inconceivable in terms of thought, because of the way he left office, Well, you see, it is the vindictive Biden administration that actually gave Trump a voice.
In what ways?
Okay, first of all, if Trump was left to go through the primaries on his own, it might be a lot tougher. We had promising Republicans like the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, and Nikki Haley too. These were figures who were really rallying the base. But you see, once the Biden administration started witch hunting Trump, all the polls and everything, the voters skewed in favor of Trump. So they brought him back. They cannot complain now, because when it comes to this, they are the ones that have likened him to Hitler. They are the ones that have labeled him a fascist. In fact, the New York rally that was done at the Madison Square Garden, they were even likening it to a 1933 gathering of Nazis. They started this hateful rhetoric. And for somebody like Trump, he doesn't hold back. But what is really beating them hollow right now is the fact that they didn't expect Trump to be this measured. It had some lapses though, it had some negative fallout, but they expected that by now he would have put himself in a lot of trouble. But this time they are surprised that the man is measured in terms of tone. As for the MSG rally, where the comedian came and made a very demeaning point about the island of Puerto Rico, I must tell you that the Trump campaign organization responded. Yes, it was their job to vet the guy, but somebody was put there. He didn't echo Trump's sentiments, so they released a statement to distance themselves from that, right? But just after that, the President Biden jumped onto it and started calling all Trump supporters garbage. Right? He's not on the ballot, but this election is a referendum on him and and Kamala Harris.
Harris.
Now, you're talking about polls. I've told you from the beginning, these polls have been funny. It's surprising that Osamu is alluding to that fact. Yeah, these polls have been funny. The Republicans are typically known not to even they try to even evade surveys. Most of them are not given to it. But what they just do on election day, they come out en masse. So right now, statistically, the early voting tally is a great concern. Of course, we know we've had a lot of new Republican registrations. Don't forget that there are other elements, even in the swing states, that could, tilt this election one way or the other. We have independents. We have JFK Jr., we have Jill Stein of the Green Party. They still get votes, no matter how small. Yeah, and of course, a lot of other independents too. The point I'm making here is that if this election is being touted as a statistical tie at this critical level, then it means that Trump is leading overwhelmingly. Why do I always allude to this media bias? They've shown it, demonstrated it before in 2016, in 2020, and now. For example, recently, NBC, the producers of Saturday Night Live, invited Kamala Harris, right, on their last Saturday show before election, Tuesday, today, and they were supposed, according to the director, he has said that they won't be able to get any of the candidates because they are obligated by law, right, to invite the candidates. If you are inviting anyone, you're inviting all at different times, and you're giving them equal time. And now you're going to say this and that. Now, because they are trying to settle, they don't want the lawsuits of the liability that comes with that, they had to find a way to pander to Trump and offer him an equal time for the failure to invite him to the show. Right. Now, and he graciously took it and did it on the Sunday soccer program. But the point I'm making here is that because the traditional mainstream media always tend to be skewed in favor of the Democratic Party, of course, they're known, the Washington Post, in fact, the NBC, CBS, they know these liberal stations and what they do. Trump has been the traditional outlier, has sought unconventional means. He's leading the podcast, and he's been able to use the podcast to reach a new demographic and draw them to himself. For example, this man spent 3 hours on live broadcast with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is somebody who is very popular as far as podcasts are concerned. He has about 14 million viewers on Spotify and over 17 million on YouTube. And the last I checked, going to over 35 million people has already seen that video.
All right.
3-4 hours, and Trump was able to make his case. Now listen, against circumventing the influence of the mainstream media. Of course, you also have the neck boys who are also who has very a broad-based audience too. And so now they just can't figure out how it is that Trump is doing so well amongst cutting new voters, because in this election, there are a lot of things that matter.
All right.
It's about jobs.
It's about jobs.
The Rust Belt, the manufacturing jobs that have left America to Mexico and other places, is a lot of concern. There are a lot of people who cannot fend for their families. And this time, they don't care about Trump's rhetorics or even Kamala Harris' rhetorics or even Hillary Clinton's.
They just want food on their table.
Rhetorics. They just want to survive. They want the American dream back.
I will come back to you. Now,
and they know there's a marked difference between 4 years of Trump, wherein they got tax rebates, as against the 4 years of Biden.
I'll come back to you. Now, let's move straight over to Honorable Iyegariba, New Jersey. It seems like the Democrats are afraid of the Electoral College. Why is it so?
Well, I wouldn't say the Democrats are afraid of the Electoral College. It's what is constitutional, and it's what brought Joe Biden and Kamala Harris into power. So they were afraid of what they couldn't have been afraid of what brought them into power. Is what is constitutionally allowed. But the whole idea is this. If we go by the very definition of democracy, which means the rule of the majority, so it is an adjustment that I believe with time will be made in the U.S. Constitution, because it just does not make common sense in this time and age that you can win, majority of the people will vote for you, and then the minority we actually elect a president because of the Electoral College. So I see that will be adjusted maybe in the years to come. And I just also want to talk to my friend and brother in the studio. Yes, today is definitely going to go the way of the Democrats. And why am I saying this? 4 years ago, Donald Trump was against early voting, and so this year he encouraged Republicans to go out and vote. So the bulk of Republicans who usually wait to vote on election day already voted. So to this the and about more than half of those who are to vote, over 90 million voters already voted. So we just have about approximately 70 million people that will be voting on election day, which is today. Therefore, the Democrats are already even leading in many of the votes that have been cast, and fewer Republicans will be voting today uh, than they usually do on election day. Because typically Republicans wait to vote on election day, but most of them have done their early voting. And of course, if you are going to be looking at other circumstances, because we have about four patterns of voting here. You have the mail-in ballots, which obviously is going to favor Democrats. You have the early voting is neck to neck because the Republicans have changed their strategy this time and they are voting because typically Democrats do most of the early voting, but the Republicans seems to be catching up on that now, which means election day proper will be for the Democrats because the absentee bylaws, those will come in the days to come. Those are for American citizens across the world who are going to be voting in their various countries of residence. But to say that the Democrats are afraid of the electoral map is inaccurate. And also inaccurate here in my friend's allusion is that the Democrats or Kamala Harris do not have policies. That is not very correct. In every election cycle globally, the tendency is for the incumbents to preach continuity or campaign on continuity with most of the programs. So Kamala Harris is vice president to Biden. So it's only normal for her to flow to say, because if you are not campaigning with continuity, means you are condemning the very policies that you're a part of, which she cannot do. Why those who are outside of government will be campaigning with change? So what we are having now is that Donald Trump is campaigning, oh, I'm going to change what is ongoing. And Kamala Harris is saying, I'm going to modify what we already have and to my own part, but using better strategies and improving on what we typically already have on the ground. And some of these issues, for instance, in foreign affairs, we know Donald Trump, he plays, he's not into associating much with other countries. He believes that America put America first. So NATO, of course, is not going to be on his card, and there's going to be a trade war against China. He's going to continue with all of those things. We already know what he stands for. But Democrats also are different. Of course, Donald Trump will be meeting with someone like Putin, with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Of course, the Democrats will not be doing all of these things. So we already know where everyone stands in their foreign affairs, in their trade policies, and in the domestic issues. And on the issue of immigration, Kamala Harris has not anywhere, to the best of my knowledge, said that she was going to create a path for undocumented immigrants to attain citizenship. The best that they have said is that they are trying to document these people because of the security issues that they pose, such that they can have legal access to work in the country, because the immigrants, are a part of what makes America great. They are the ones who stimulate the economy of the United States. They are the ones who do the jobs, the numerous factory jobs. They are the ones you are going to find most in healthcare. So they are actually at the base holding the American economy up.
All right.
That the Democrats understand this. Why it is wrong to allow people in, through the border into the country, but they are being processed, and many of them
All
are being
right.
sent back. As a matter of fact, deportation has been more under the Democrats than the Republicans.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. As you can see, our time is up. So, Barrister Osa, I also really want to have the last line on this discussion. I know everyone have so much to say. Americans right now, they are going to the polls, have started voting already. So what advice do you have for the hopefuls? And of course, if everyone is hopeful that a candidate is going to win, also over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly say this. Trump has been president and commander-in-chief of the United States of America. Kamala Harris has never been that. So, and when Trump was president, when he left office, the US was in an economic collapse, not primarily because of COVID, but because of the way he capitulated and surrendered to COVID. So, we have a man who is unstable and who plunged the nation into economic collapse, such that have never been seen since the Great Depression of the 1930s, and he's here making so much noise about being an economic giant, about fighting China and bringing job and manufacturing back to the US. Here is a man who wears hypocrisy as a badge of honor, a man who went all the way to China to print his Bibles, his sneakers, everything is merchandising for his election. He went to China to print it because he wanted to what? Because he's a true capitalist. He wanted to save costs and then to make money for himself. So what he's saying, let me tell you how you define a man. A man is defined not by what he says, but by what he does. You try and dissect and bracketize as it were what Trump is saying, and then bracketize what he has done, and you see that that man is a captain in hypocrisy. I haven't said that. Let me quickly say this, that this election is going to define the trajectory, not just of the US, but of the world. If we are, as a people, if falsehood is going to prevail, if love, affection, and if America is to be true to the script, that air pluribus uno, out of many, one persons, that is what is going to be settled in this election. Trump is trying to take us back. And what is Kamala saying? That there is no going back. He's taking us back to the notion that America should be white and Christian. We have gone past that. I am a Christian and I take my faith seriously, but I also realize that the state has no business, or ordinarily should have no business in what a man calls his God, or the persons a man or a person chooses to marry. So the Republicans are trying to bring us back to, I don't know how to describe it, and the world has morphed. The world has gone past that. Unless and until they change their trajectory, unless the Republican Party broaden its base by introducing common sense policies, common sense attitude. If we continue to lose the popular vote, and by God, very soon the electoral college, and they need to what? They need to change.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I know, sir, you want to say something, but our time is up. I know, Honorable, you want to, like, add on or two things, but come on, take a look at the time. We have to go. Let's see how all this will pan out. But I appreciate all of you for joining us via Zoom, and of course, to you also, Cyril, that is here with me in the studio. I really appreciate it. Let's see how America will decide on one hand, and how the electoral college will decide on the other hand. This is not only about America. It is about the world. Next week, Tuesday, we'll do it again. Bye for now.